Welcome to the podcast with Kilee Nickels. I made the unlikely transition from stay-at-home mom to CEO of Nickel & Suede, a leading multi-million-dollar fashion company. At Nickel & Suede, we empower the everyday woman to step into her story more boldly, one life-changing accessory at a time. The goal of this podcast is to inspire you through my story and the stories of other powerhouse women to live the best version of your life. So grab a notebook, grab a pen, and get ready to get started with Kilee Nickels. Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome back to the podcast. I am excited to be here and excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is a good friend of mine and also really successful in many ways. Today's guest is Kendra Johnston. Oh gosh. Just leave it in. We're just going through
all the empathy.
Today's guest is Kendra Johnston. She is of J House Vlogs. She's a mom of 5. They have a YouTube channel. They've been family vlogging for the last 5 years and have 2 million subscribers. I did say 2 million. We started our businesses around the same time. Nickel & Suede and their YouTube channel took off really within the same couple months span. So that's been really fun. She's been homeschooling for 7 years. So she's got homeschooling under her belt. And we have kids that are the same age. So we've known each other for a long time, but I'm excited to have you today.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Yeah. So I've been trying to get Kendra on the podcast for a while.
I've been pretty nervous.
I admire her so much. And like I said, we're friends, but she's accomplished and she's done a lot of things. I'd say similar to me, despite being, can I say afraid? Despite not wanting to do a lot of things.
For sure say afraid.
It's
been an overwhelming thing.
To have a YouTube channel with 2 million subscribers, to homeschool for 7 years, I
feel like I live life outside of my comfort zone.
Yes.
And sometimes that can be a vulnerable place to share or speak from.
Totally. Which is why I wanted to have you on so bad, because I admire you so much. I do feel like you live life outside of your comfort zone. And I remember for a long time, being always admiring when I saw you step outside of your box, because I could always very clearly see your box.
Yes.
And I mean that in the best possible way, but it's very easy to see your box and easy to see when you step outside of it. And that I think is like you said, so vulnerable. And I just love that. I think it's so admirable. And I think why people love you. And so I want people to hear from Kendra, because she is so awesome about that. And as a family vlog, your family gets all the airtime. It's a family thing. And so people don't hear from you as much, but I get to talk to you all the time. And so I know how great you are about stepping out of your comfort zone and just being so authentic. So,
well, thanks. I am more comfortable with my whole family in the camera than just myself here. So we'll see.
All right. Well, so we've known each other for a long time.
We have. Back to college.
Mm-hmm.
We knew each other in college.
Been a few years since then.
Yes.
Probably 2.
And then we were neighbors for a very long time.
Yeah. And back then life was easy. We just had a couple of kids. We weren't trying to own businesses or doing anything.
Yes. Okay. One of my favorite stories about being your neighbor was when I was incredibly morning sick with one of my kids. And I was so morning sick that even the smell of my food cooking in my house made me completely sick. And so I called you and was like, can I put my crock pot in your kitchen all day so it can just cook over there? Because I just couldn't handle it in my house. And of course, you're super nice neighbor and let my crock pot cook in your house. So you're fun neighbors with kids playing in the backyard. Those were some fun days.
Yeah. Yeah. We each have 5 kids and
they line up pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And what did you get? Okay. So backtracking a little bit to what did you think when you got married? What did you think you guys were going to do? Because we thought, I've said this before on the podcast and in our history. I thought we were going to move to Seattle. Soren was going to be an accountant. We were going to have some kids and have I was going to be stay-at-home mom, and we were going to have our family life that looked like my parents' life, which is fantastic. I love my family.
Yeah.
What did you think when you got married? And tell me your setup.
Funny story. When I met Jeremy, just first conversation back and forth, what are you doing? What are you studying at school? And I asked him, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to change the world through film. And I laughed because I did not think by any means that he was serious. And then I looked at him, oh, I'm sorry. you're serious? And he's like, yeah, I want to make videos that inspire people and, just affect people and uplift them in their daily life. And I was like, okay. So we started dating. I was in nursing school at the time, so that's my background. I worked as a labor and delivery nurse for several years, and it feels like an alternate life now.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jeremy he decided to go into law school, but his passion was always that film. And so by the time we were graduating from college, it was really the plan was he was going to be a lawyer and work as a lawyer, and I was a nurse, and I'd work part-time and hang out with the kids, and that was the plan. But obviously our life is completely different than that now. So I quit as a labor and delivery nurse when we had our third child. I just wanted to have, with Jeremy and I both working, it was just really hectic. And so I decided to stay home with the kids.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy launched J House in September of 2014. And that's when we had 4 kids. And then 2.5 years later, I can't remember exactly, he quit as a lawyer. And so now we do YouTube full-time as a family, and that was definitely not something that I ever foresaw in my future. I'm kind of quieter. I am friendly, but definitely not open up to a lot of people on YouTube is not my norm.
Yeah.
And I didn't even do social media before then. Like, I didn't have Instagram or any of the things, and so it was definitely a big leap way out of my comfort zone when we did J House.
Yeah. So would you say J House was your first big leap out of your comfort zone or change? Right? We talked about this before the podcast because...
No, I think the real first leap for me, kind of going against the norm or against what I had expected always, was when I chose to homeschool. And that was a little bit before J House. And I just remember that felt like such a huge decision because it felt like, the plan is have kids, they go to school, and that just felt, I guess, comfortable to me. But my heart was just being pulled towards homeschool. And I researched it and was really digging into it. And then I had a friend say, what do you have to lose? Just go for it. And I was like, wait a minute. You're right. Like, I can just live life the way that I want to live life. I can try it. And if it's not a raving success, that's okay. Like, I can adjust from there. And so we started homeschool, and the plan was just to homeschool for that year.
Yeah.
And then see where it went. And now 7 years later, we're still homeschooling. And, we just always say we'll take it 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
So, but it's been such an amazing transition for my family and has opened up different opportunities to learn together and travel together and play together. And so, anyway, I guess that was the first time I went off the beaten track. I remember sitting inside the very first day my son would have gone to kindergarten, and like the school bus came and it went by, and I was like, oh, this is real. This is really happening. So...
Yeah, like, what have I done?
Yes, this is a change, but yeah.
Were you, did taking it 1 year at a time, did that help it feel more like safe and manageable? Like, I feel like that's a great way to look at like taking that risk, was like, hey, we're just doing it 1 year at a time, and like, there's an eject button. Like, it doesn't have to just, like, nothing's permanent. Trying it will be okay. Yeah,
because when you're trying something new, you don't know where it's going. And so making a long-term decision, I couldn't decide what was best for my son at 12 years old at that point. I was just deciding what was best for him at 5 and 6 years old.
Yeah.
And when you're going into the unknown, it's nice to feel like you still have options.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a really big... Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a great, like, way to look at really anything that you're going into the unknown, or it seems like it worked well. You evaluated as you went. And I think you're somebody that like is so careful and pays attention to like, is this working? Is it not working? Yeah. And that if you're attentive, that like you'll figure it out.
That's what, every year we try to evaluate what is our goal as a family. What are the kids' needs? And then what's the best route to try to meet that? So every year we've kind of been open to just whatever pivots we need to make for our family. But for right now, this is still working really well for us.
How did you get over, or did your worst fear come true with like, what are people thinking about me doing homeschool?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go against the grain in life and not hear the comments.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're from people close to you, and sometimes they're, you just hear it through the grapevine, and sometimes it's just the general consensus in the social media world that people have different opinions.
Yeah.
And that totally makes sense. And sometimes people are friendlier in the way they say it, and sometimes they're less friendly. And
Yeah.
so there were definitely times when I had to cope with the feeling of, being hurt.
Yeah.
But then coping with that and realizing that I'm living my life and they can live their life, and kind of learning to separate what other people think of me from my reality.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that continued a lot as we moved on into YouTube.
Yeah. Well, and were you finding joy and were you proud of your decision? Like, did that get reinforced? Like, as
For
you were
sure.
like, I did what I wanted to do for my family, and that got reinforced as you continue to go on?
For sure. We've never been like against public school at all. We love public school, but we also love homeschooling. And so for me, I feel like I'm a special kind of crazy where homeschooling is my happy place.
It is.
Like, I really light up when I talk about homeschooling.
Yeah.
Like, teaching my kids is probably one of my favorite ways to interact with them as a mom.
Yeah.
And the adventures we have as a family, like, it's just what makes me come alive. And so I wouldn't want to force it on anybody else because it might not be their happy place.
Yeah.
But definitely I've seen in ways in my own life, like for me personally, that homeschooling has stretched and helped me. And then as my kids have grown up, seeing their different needs, whether one of my kids has some special learning needs, and the way we've been able to accommodate with homeschooling has been so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that we've had that flexibility. And then it's just been, I feel like I've seen in lots of different ways how this is the right choice for our family. And I think as you see that, it gives you strength against the storms of other people's opinions, because they can say whatever negative thing they want to,
Yeah.
but they don't know the reality that's going on inside the walls of your home.
Yeah.
And so I think letting people have different realities, and
Yeah.
I don't know, just, I guess when you feel really safe and secure inside of yourself with what you're doing, that gives confidence too.
I love that. Yeah. And I think what you pointed out really well, which is really pertinent right now with homeschooling. Homeschooling is like a huge discussion right now. And I'm sure you would have so many good things to say if that was like our whole point of today. But just that for you, it's like your happy place. It's your strength, and it's something that lights you up. And like you didn't, like the point is that you didn't let other people hold you back from like doing the thing that really lights you up and like makes you feel alive as a person. And like for some moms, that's not the case. It's just part of like mom duty currently.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and that's okay. But like just the fact that you found something, you're like, this makes me feel alive. It does happen to be involving my kids. It does happen to be like, it is this. But I think the bigger picture cool thing is that like, it's part of Kendra. Like it's part of you. It is your thing. And it makes you feel alive as a person, regardless of like what it is. And you didn't let other people like hold you back from that.
And I think that's actually something that I've always really loved about our friendship is you and I are completely different people when you look at our interests.
Yes.
Like as far as like similar hobbies or interests, we're just so different. And I feel like having friendships with people that have such, like I feel like you honor that homeschooling for me really is what makes me come alive, and fashion and style and creativity really makes you come alive. And I feel like as we give that to kind of everybody in the world, like
Yes.
just accepting that everybody can have their own thing and run that direction.
Yes. Yes.
And that's great. And we don't have to label it with how we would perceive that thing.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody told me I had to do my makeup every day, that would be like a torture to me.
No,
But reading books with my kids every day or teaching them multiplication, sure, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. See, I cannot do
Totally
some of
different
those things,
kinds.
but I think that's okay. We're just giving everyone permission
Yeah.
to be the thing that lights them up.
Yeah.
And that if we can all do that, then the world's going to be a better place. Everyone's going to be their best selves everywhere they go.
For sure.
So
I feel like that lesson continued on in J House because J House is our family YouTube channel. And as it grew, obviously there was positive feedback and negative feedback, and learning how to adjust to that. There was a certain season of growth in the business where the growth of the vlog also meant growth in comments and lots of new people coming in.
Yeah.
And it was a really challenging time for me to try to learn how to filter outside voices and how to be more firm as a core person in my reality. Anyway, a friend in the YouTube space told me, don't let positive comments go to your head and don't let negative comments go to your heart. And that was a really just interesting time because you'd get comments that like, oh, you're the best mom ever. And you're doing all these fun things. And then you'd also get the comments that were so critical and and negative and hurtful.
Yeah.
And learning how to distance both of those from me.
Yeah.
And just say my reality is within the walls of my home, and who I am is separate than how anyone is perceiving me or what they're saying about me. Like, it was a really interesting time to learn just to stand on my own feet inside of myself and say, this is who I am and this is what we're doing. And it doesn't matter if all the world agrees with us or all the world disagrees with us, because we feel peace in this space. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, that's like, I'd say one of the hardest things for anybody and everybody. I have talked to Derek, my producer, before, and said, like, YouTube is such a scary, awful place. Like, I've had old videos of like hair tutorials or something, and I remember looking back at them and being like, I cannot believe people are leaving mean comments on this. Like, don't they know that these are like 100 years old and I didn't even try, and like people are being so mean. And so I just like, I cannot imagine like the guts that it takes to like be on the YouTube stage, especially like at the level you guys have been at. And because it does invite, like, so much success invites so much criticism.
For sure.
And then you do have to like wrestle with both, because how can they both be true? Like, you can't be like, I know, you know, some of what it's like to be recognized in public and to be like looked at and like fanned upon. And it's like, hey, I'm a normal person, even though like I do love creating wonderful things for people. And I also know I'm not perfect. And so like having these extremes, you have to be centered on like knowing who you are.
Yes.
So
I love that word, centered. I think that is one thing that I learned, is that just as much as I couldn't let the negative comments hurt, I had to not be pulled by the positive comments.
Yeah.
Like my confidence really had to come from inside of me.
Yeah.
Because when you let the positive comments have sway, then you're allowing power to the negative comments too. And so it's just like they both kind of have to be shut out and being centered as a family.
Yeah. I was talking with Jennifer Allwood about this a couple of weeks ago, about just like that, like when you want to evolve or when you want to grow, like people will want to hold you back from that. And so like just the idea that like people around all of us will like always have opinions about what we want to do or what we are doing, and even just trying to improve, like people will try to like hold you back and keep you stuck. And that if we aren't centered and we don't know who we are and where we're going, that will really, like, it's so scary, I think, to be somebody who doesn't know who they are and doesn't know where they're going, because it's like you turn into a people pleaser and you feel like
you shift at every little tiny thing.
Yeah.
And you cannot survive in any sort of a social media space with that.
Yeah. I really admire that you guys have been able to navigate that. And I think that's such an important lesson to learn, is like good things people say, bad things people say, like you just have to be able to
let go of it all.
Yeah. I think that's really true. So you've jumped off the norm, out of the norm. You've jumped out of your box. You've stepped out of the norm.
I have.
Gone against the grain with homeschooling. Gone against the grain by having Jeremy quit his job and doing a YouTube channel full time. You're a YouTube family, which...
That's very out of the grain.
It's pretty out of the grain, especially here in Kansas City. There's not very many. I don't know where there's very many, but I just think it's pretty out of the norm.
Yeah.
Which I can relate to, because I mean, we could quit our jobs to start a business too. It's just, I think if you want to do something new, it's going against the grain. Anything else? What would you say is the next thing you guys have done?
We also moved our family far away. We've traveled a lot, and we decided to pick up from Kansas City and move to Puerto Rico for a couple years of an adventure, just to try to experience life in a different way. We just kind of wanted to open all of our minds to the fact that there's lots of different ways of living and existing, and lots of different amazing people and places and beauty on the earth. And so that was a big move.
That's a huge jump.
That's a big move.
That's really big.
I think I underestimated it. Jeremy and I joke now that we were like, this is going to be so good for the kids. This is going to like open up their perspective and give them such a great new view of the world. And I think we underestimated how much of a shift it would be for us.
Yes.
So we love Puerto Rico. Oh my goodness, it is so beautiful. And the people there are so wonderful. But anytime you move outside of your comfort zone, again, your space where you know all the places where you can drive without GPS, where you know how to, I mean, just little things like communicate with people at the grocery store.
Yes.
It's definitely been a big shift, and I think we've learned a lot from it.
What are you most proud of that move and that jump?
Survival. It's one thing to move. I loved traveling before we had kids, and it's just totally different to do it with 5 kids in tow. Mm-hmm. So I think just navigating daily life and finding the joy in that, I feel like I'm probably most proud of the way my kids have proven to be so much more adaptable. I know when they were first, when we were first traveling and they were exposed to things that were new or different, there was more apprehension. And I feel like I'm seeing their confidence and their acceptance and their adaptability. Yeah. Like they're willing to run with it. And so I feel like that's a big purpose of our time down there. So that's good.
Do you feel like your ability to step out of your comfort zone has increased? Your ability to get over fear?
A millionfold. But it still doesn't feel big enough to face some of the things. It's like life doesn't stop.
Yeah.
So if I could go backwards, oh yeah, sure. But you're never going backwards. You're always going forwards.
Yes.
And it feels like it only gets more interesting, I guess is the right way to put it. But I need to just continually practice letting go. It's funny how it can still be hard to step out of your comfort zone, even when you've started basically living outside of your comfort zone. You still crave the comfort zone.
It's true. It just continues to expand, and it's almost like an infinite expansion. And it's like, doesn't it end? Like, can't it stop?
Can't the resistance to it stop?
Yeah. Haven't I gone far enough? I feel like there can be that feeling.
I felt that before.
Yeah. We talked about this before. Like, isn't this good enough? And, but then I think, then I would get boring. Then it would be like, well, I think
at this point I can't imagine trying to fit into any sort of a norm. Like there's no going back, I guess.
And that's what's wonderful about it. It is exciting.
It is.
Yeah. So do you feel like you have another like step forward that you're feeling like you're headed towards?
At this point, I feel like there's a lot of unknown ahead. So I feel like it's interesting as our family is growing up, like what is our future with homeschool? What is our future with YouTube? What is our future with travel? And I guess there's just a lot of unknowns, but I think unknown is kind of the norm right now. Yes. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much unknown. And then I look around and I'm like, okay, that's just the soup we're all swimming in right now. Yes. And so I just need to embrace it and not try to plan it. Sometimes that's a big problem I have is I'm like, okay, this is the new plan. These are the new expectations. Let's do it. And then those get crushed and crashed and shattered. And so I guess I'm trying to not know exactly what the future holds and just focus on becoming the best version of myself so that with the unknown of the future, no matter what it holds, if I can be in a place where I'm having self-compassion and where I'm, I guess, proud of my habits and the ways that I'm trying to grow, it'll serve me no matter what the unknowns ahead are.
Yeah.
I guess.
I love that. Well, and I think you can look back and see how far you've come, like how far you've come out of your box and how like every time you've handled it, every time you've risen to the occasion, like that's what you do. That's what your family does. You guys rise to the occasion. You always tackle something that you didn't know how crazy it was going to be or how hard it's going to be, and you handle it. Like that's just what you do. And so I think that's just a super good lesson that like that is the soup we're all swimming in right now. I love that. That's so it's all unknown, but like you'll handle it when it shows up, and the day, like you'll handle tomorrow when it gets here. That's what I always tell people, like you can handle today. Today is all you got to worry about. Tomorrow we'll get here when it gets here. So I like that. All right. I've got some rapid fire questions.
All right. We'll see what I got.
So these should just be quick. Like, what's the first thing you think of? What's the scariest thing you've ever done?
Oh, I'm scared of kind of a lot of things. So it probably is any time I was in like a dark scary place. Like a haunted house, I am not.
Yeah.
I am not a risk taker in that sense.
I don't go to those. I think it was like
neither.
maybe like Worlds of Fun's haunted house was the last one I went to.
No, it was definitely probably in my teenage years. And no.
Yeah, agreed. What's the most challenging physical thing you've ever done? Like a climb up something?
Probably half marathons.
Oh, yes. I've done one of those with you in like a relay fashion.
Yeah, we did.
What's the grossest food you've ever tried? Like most bravest food?
I think we ate like, are they like cow testicles? I don't know what those things are called. Yes, that's what they're called. Rocky Mountain oysters.
Were they as gross? I mean, that sounds...
No, they're just not okay. I think I took like a tiny nibble of the fried part and then...
So you didn't really try it?
No.
The concept was gross.
Yes.
Enough. Hilarious. What's the hardest habit for you to stick with?
Oh, mornings. Like getting up and being on top of things in the mornings.
The
whole genre. Mornings.
I don't do mornings. Have you seen that? Okay, what's your favorite inspirational quote? Like,
who knows, but that something wonderful may happen today. Have faith that it will.
Oh, wonderful. Good job. What are you excited most about in the next 12 months? Like,
anytime I can be outdoors with my family, hiking, beaching, just whatever. Outdoor time as a family is my favorite.
You do like that. Okay, what advice would you give to, this is kind of the last question, it doesn't have to be rapid fire. Okay. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
To my 18-year-old self, I would to learn to have deep compassion for yourself because mistakes will be made. Perfection is not an option. And if you can love yourself and allow yourself to gracefully make mistakes and then love yourself through it and kind of just have peace with that, then the journey will be more pleasant. It'll be a journey of acceptance instead of resistance and a journey of love instead of judgment. And so I feel like self-compassion is the greatest tool that I am still striving to develop, but I think it would have been the best help to my 18-year-old self.
Yeah, I love that. I would agree with you there on so many points. I struggle with, feeling like, we've said like, aren't I good enough already? Or haven't I tried hard enough to step out of my comfort zone? And it's like, hey, you know what? You're doing great. Keep trying like that. I do feel like that personal attitude, that's how you just keep getting better and love yourself through it. So yeah, I love that. Great words of wisdom, Kendra.
Thanks.
I see you're so wise. So, okay. So where can people find you? You can find you on Instagram at JHouse Vlogs, on YouTube at JHouse. And you also have a family podcast, which I was on this morning. It was so fun with Jeremy and Elise.
Yes,
and
that's the JHouse podcast.
Okay. So go check that out. I will leave a link in the YouTube comments on this video too, so you can see that interview. It was really fun to be interviewed by them and talk about Nickels Wade and JHouse and
We're having a lot of fun with that project. It's really fun.
Kids, it's fun. It'll be like a kids podcast and for adults as well, which is really cool.
Our kids with Jeremy interview different people and hear their stories, and so it's an interview style but with the kids.
Yeah, and they've interviewed so many different famous people already, so I think it'll be really fun to watch that grow. So awesome. Thanks so much for coming on today. It's been great to talk with you. Love to hear your wisdom, and can't wait to see how else you continue to share it out. So thanks again.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today to With Kilee Nickels. I hope that today you felt empowered to take one more step towards living the best version of you. Tune in next week for another episode, and in the meantime, you can find us elsewhere on the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Kilee Nickels and at Nickel and Suede. You can also find us at nickelandswade.com. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.